Well, on today's Signature Style Saturday, I'm going to show you a couple of things that I kind of consider to be my signature style. We're going to seed a lot of pots with different kinds of greens and spring vegetables. We're going to look at several things that are giving me a jolt of joy. We're going to do a fun thing one and thing two, and we're also going to do something to kind of preempt our problem that most of us have with Japanese beetles. So what do you say, Stuart?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Okay, so it was a gardening risk worth taking, and I'm so happy that I did indeed take the risk. So I told you I had these square wooden planters that when I purchased them had, I can't remember, some kind of forced bulbs in them. And I am reusing them to have little tiny lawns. Can you see?
Yeah,
See how much has sprouted? And it's interesting because they both sprouted very, very quickly. I would say in about 6 days. This one has turned into a little grassy knoll. And this one is just flat. But how cute will these be at Easter? I could stick some little flowers in there, even some little dandelions or something, but I anticipate that I might have some little chicks running around on the top, or maybe a little baby bunny. I think this would be so cute. So the how-to is just take any kind of container, get some perennial rye seed. It can be annual rye seed. You can buy very small amounts sometimes from a local seed company or even your nursery, and then you just seed it on top of a good quality potting soil. In fact, it doesn't even have to be that good a quality. I had some soil that was already in here, and I just put some fresh soil on top, and like I say, it germinated very, very quickly. Now, when I first did it, you can see kind of my wet dry cleaner bag here. I took it off so the grass wouldn't burn. But when I first seeded it, I had these inside. I watered them real well, and then I left them under cover, so it provided kind of a greenhouse effect for them. But they're going strong now. I think they're going to be absolutely adorable for me to have inside or out, and it was so fun to do. So here is my question of the day. If you were me, how would you style these little miniature lawns for, St. Patrick's Day or for Easter? You could just let your imagination go wild. You could even make a tiny little fairy garden on here and gift it to someone for Easter. Gift it to a kiddo for Easter. So there you go. There is a gardening risk worth taking that really paid off. Well, as we try to embrace technology and use it in the garden, here's something that's really fun. I saw this same effect, I guess it was on Instagram or something like that. And that was when the owner of the garden got down very, very low, and then very slowly they took what we call B-roll, B-R-O-L-L, B-roll, very slowly and low across a space. And in this case, in my case, I did it along both sides of the walkway, and I'll also be doing it on Autumn's edge. Now, why this is important is it will give you a record of how your garden transforms over time from winter all the way through fall. You could do this on a daily basis, you could do it on a weekly basis. I'll probably do it on a bi-weekly basis. So our set point is that very first one.
Show them kind of what it would look like.
Yeah, is that very first one that we did a couple of weeks ago, and now we're doing another one because it's showing how this area is progressing over time, how the catmint is starting to fill out, how I'm starting to get more blooms on my violas, how the green is starting to come out on the pincushion flowers, and also just what the boxwoods look at this point in time. What will be fun is in a month when we come back and we do it again, it will definitely demonstrate to us in a very clear digital way the magic that is spring. Because something that we thought was completely dead will be absolutely gorgeous, and you will be able to have that as a record in your own digital files for the year 2025, all through the gardening season. You could go back, you could do it, as I said, on a weekly basis, basis, I'll probably do it on an every other week basis. We'll demonstrate what we mean in a couple of weeks when we come back and do it again. But it's really fun. It's very, very magical, and you talk about a great before and after.
All right, guys, just an extra thought here, another tip. And that's when you do this, make sure you go really, really, really slow, almost slower than you think you should go. You will be very happy that you did that when you watch the video back.
And if you're a little bit shaky, don't worry, because the phone should stabilize it for you.
Yeah, it does a pretty good job straightening it out.
Okay, before we get started, I want to kind of do a little throwdown. So I saw these darling cucamelons. I mean, they are only like an inch long cucumber melons, and I saw these on, I believe it was Victoria Scoglin's Instagram page. Stuart, if we can, let's put up a little bit of information about her. And she was growing these tiny little cucumbers. Great if you've got a small garden like me, or if you're doing container gardening. So I will also put a link to these, but this is just a really fun thing, you guys, and a little throwdown from me. There's my gate squeak, so I know if people are coming in. Now already, I mean, you know, we started to stage this the other day, and then the weather just basically got really bad, and so we had to stop. But here are a couple of things that I wanted to show you before we start seeding some vegetables, and that is that finally I am seeing evidence of tulips back here. And by the way, you guys need to not only compliment Stuart on his great camera skills, but also the fact that half the time he's doing it, it's blind. He's blind because of the sun. So you can see right here my shadow. Finally, these have all started to come up. And then, since I had plants here that died, you may remember that I had a Eugenia in here that I forgot to take in, and it died in place, so now I want something that will be enduring. So I got 2 of these arborvitas, and this is a Grow Beautifully Ember Waves Western Arborvita, and I could have gotten some similar to the Southern Living Plant Collection ones, Forever Goldie, but I didn't, because those don't get quite as tall, and I wanted these to get a little bit taller. And if you have been wondering when the time is to prune your arborvita, well, the answer is right now, and I'm going to be doing a little bit of that when we come back. Well, you may have seen the other day that I put up a flashback video about styling your front porch for spring. This spring it's just very slow in coming, so I'm not nearly as far along as I have been in years past in staging what I want my front porch to look like. But I am beginning, starting with this wonderful basket I showed you last time, where I did some basement diving, and I found a great basket in which I just dropped, it was plop and drop, some forced hyacinths that I got at Lowe's, and that's the beginning. And you can see pretty soon they will be accompanied by some more violas and some pansies that I have running up and down the walkway. But also, that I planted up in both of these urns on either side of my front porch. Now, definitely these little violas and pansies are not dead. You can see they've got very evident green on them, and even some new little flowers coming out. But they definitely took a hit from that last Arctic blast that they had, and they're not looking as fresh and as abundant as I would like them to be. In other words, it's going to take them a while to catch up. In past years, these have already been in full flower, in full growth, and a lot more mature. But here is another way to garden in the forgotten places, and that is seeding some lettuce in areas that are kind of unexpected. One of my favorite seeds to use in the spring is black-seeded Simpson. It is absolutely a beautiful chartreusey color that looks fabulous with purple. And so what I'm going to do is, in the voids right here, between the flowers, and by the way, we're getting my front door fixed, so if you hear some noise in the background, that's what that is. Okay, so I'm scruffing this up a little bit, and then I'm going to take some of this seed, and it will germinate in short order, and I will have this fluffy skirt of yellow lettuce around the base of these violas, and they will all kind of just intermingle with one another, and it will be very, very fun. If it gets too hot for the lettuce, then I can just pull it out, but by that time it's probably going to be a little too hot for the violas and the pansies too. So I'm going to sprinkle this pretty heavily, and later I can thin it if I want to, but I think that's going to be very sweet. Then I've got these obelisks that came from my QVC collection. Sadly, they are no longer available, but it will protect this pot from any kind of marauding squirrels. I'm going to do the same thing over here. Obviously, I need to come back and I need to groom these, which I will, but no matter, I can do that even after I have kind of seeded. And the nice thing is, if some of the seed germinates real heavily in one location and the other location is barren, then all I have to do is prick out a tiny seedling and just move it from one place in the spot to the other, or one place in the pot to the other. A different pot spot. Well, I haven't done an outfit of the day in a while, so here goes from top to bottom. My earrings came from a darling clothing store called Eden. It's in the Patio district. We have shot a video there before. If you are coming to town, I highly encourage that you go in there. Really fun stuff, jewelry and clothing. My top is just thrifted. It's just one of these long shirts that I like to wear out in the garden, nothing expensive. But are you admiring my scarf, Stuart?
I am.
This is one of those beautiful silk scarves that came from my friend Bryn Hartzell, and we will put a link below. It's just, it feels silky because it is a silk scarf with beautiful, beautiful hearts on it. Pretty. Yeah, very, very pretty. You guys want to check out her website and her other things. My breeches are just thrifted. Here is a tip. I think I have given it to you before, but I'm going to tell you again, and that is when you are working out in the garden, you really, if you're going to wear jeans, you want to wear jeans that have some give to them, a little bit of stretch, a little bit of spandex, because when they don't have give to them, your range of motion isn't as great and you can really hurt yourself and you can hurt your back, which I did yesterday. So if I sound a little bit loopy, it's because I'm on a muscle relaxant and some ibuprofen. And lastly, my boots are just good old hunter boots that I got on eBay. So I don't think I'm forgetting anything. What do you say, Stuart? There you go, my outfit du jour. Okay, here is a thing one, thing two that I alluded to in a previous video, and that was that I bought a number of these darling pots of muscari, of grape hyacinths from Trader Joe's. I love the clay pot, I love the size of it, and I love the fact that it's got a ready-made liner that fits right in. That is in addition to how sweet the tiny little blue blooms were. Now, unlike tulips, if you buy them forced, both daffodils and hyacinths can be put in the ground after they finish blooming. And in some cases, like at my sister Terry's, she's put them in the ground, let them go to seed, and they've actually gone to seed all up and down the length of a section of the river by which she lives. So that is what I'm going to do with these. So I think thing one for me is I'm going to take them out of their container and I'm going to put them in kind of this little void right in here. And thing two is next year they will look like this when they bloom. You can see that it's just about the same size in diameter, and that's clearly where I planted that other pot. And of course, with time and over the years, this will expand and expand, hopefully rollicking all up and down, rollicking and frolicking all up and down Lemon Lane. Well, you asked, and I'm going to answer. Several of you commented about using my cell phone in the garden. One person in particular, and boy, I so appreciate it. She says, Linda, I have to disagree with you. When I go out into the garden, I want it to be a pure experience. I don't want any technology. And believe me, I respect that. There are often many times when I come out here and I leave technology behind. But when I do have it with me, most of the time I have a back pocket. And I can then just slip it into my back pocket where it is safe and secure. And this is kind of a tip. When you are buying clothing that you know you're going to be working out in the garden in, then you might want to prioritize pockets. Well, here I am, the masked gardener. Now, why am I masked up? And Stuart, can people still hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, so, and the reason I'm masked up is because I don't want to inhale any of this milky spore powder, Japanese beetle control, as I'm applying it. Now, it was one of you that told me about this, and I should have done it last fall. I even purchased it last fall, and then I just kept forgetting. So even though this isn't the ideal time for the first application, nevertheless, I am going to do it because tomorrow it's supposed to rain. So always look for optimal little time frames, optimal opportunities for you to take advantage of weather to do these kinds of jobs. So I will do this in the spring, and I will also do it in the fall, and according to whatever the label directions are in terms of frequency and amount. Now in this case, they are telling me that I want to do it in 4 feet each way, kind of a grid, a teaspoon of it every 4 feet. So here's what I'm going to do. I already started out here. You can see here, Stuart, where I've applied some. And then running across the front of the upper terrace, I took about 4 feet, 1, 2, 3, 4, and I applied a teaspoon of it, and I did that all up and down. Now, the other thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to do that the same way in this direction, about 1, 2, 3, 4, and you can see I've got some here. And then to a certain extent, I am going to have to work around the plants, so I am going to adjust accordingly. And it's 1 level teaspoon, and that's a teaspoon right there. So I'm going to do it about right in here. And later, I'll come back with a long-handled pointed hoe, and I'll scruff it in. Then I'll come back and do about 2, 3, 4. And as you can see, I've still got some leaf litter. So I'll be avoiding the leaf litter, and I will also be avoiding, obviously, any plants. Now I'm doing this to inoculate this entire upper terrace because I want the entire upper terrace to have some Japanese beetle control. Stuart's also got a mask on. And by the way, it goes without saying you want to do this on a day that's not very windy. But I want to do it early enough in the season. So I'm just kind of gridding it off in about a 4x4. And I will definitely note in my garden journal when I did that. So I'm going to finish this. And then I'll meet you guys in the backyard to do some more container veggie planting. Okay, so I'm going to prune up these Forever Goldies. Now these will get to be about 3 to 4 feet wide, and they'll get, what did it say, 10 to 12 feet tall?
Correct.
The others will get considerably larger than that. Now, I am fully aware that both of these, the size is going to need to be managed, but that, since I don't have any lawn back here, that is something that doesn't intimidate me at all, especially since I kind of like pruning. So if you have arborvitae as well and you want to prune them either along the tips to just shape them.
What should you not do?
What should you not do? I'm not going to cut into old wood. I'm not going to cut into brown wood because I don't believe they will green up on brown wood. So what I'm trying to do is just enhance kind of a more narrow columnar shape. And that's what I'm doing here, and it will put out fresh new growth. And probably what I'll do tonight is put on some kind of organic fertilizer in a granular form. I'll mix it in around the soil at the base. I didn't do this last year because these were new. And even though they're still a little bit rough looking, in short order, they'll be beautiful. And I also trim around the bottom just because I like a neat bottom. And then how much you prune kind of just depends on what shape you want. Obviously, I'm going to prune out any dead wood. You can see some down here, Stuart. I'm pruning out dead wood, which is true of really any plants. And then I'm pruning this not only because I want the new pretty growth, but also because I want the plant as it is to not only be narrower in form, but also denser in form. So I'm going to step back and look at it. And I'm not being too aggressive, but probably more aggressive than I'd be if, for example, I had bought it and it was already in exactly the shape that I wanted, like that one. So that one itself, probably I will not prune on this year, other than if there are just some real outlier branches. And I can do this now, and I can pretty much do this through late winter and into early spring. If I feel like I need to make some adjustments or if I've missed a spot. But this is the perfect kind of job to do now. And yes, I probably should have put a tarp underneath there to catch it. But I am going to be cleaning up this whole area a little bit more later. See, I'm cutting out. And I want it.
All different shape.
Yeah.
Totally shaped.
Yeah, so you can kind of see. Yeah, and the other thing is it will hopefully not only force new growth on the ends, but also the interior. And that will make me happy. The other thing is that I want to fertilize it today because we've been getting some rainfall, but we all know that at any point in time, Mother Nature might turn off the faucet. So let me get out that sun there. So I want to do this today because I feel certain we are going to, well, at least the weatherman is certain. It says 100% chance of rain, that we're going to get kind of a wet wintry mix, though it's only supposed to get down to 36, so I don't think we're going to have too much of a problem with freezing ice. At least I hope not, because I wouldn't want that to deter any of you from coming to see me tomorrow at the Myriad Gardens Gardening School. It will be in the Devon Auditorium. I'll be on at 1:30. There are two great speakers before that. So if you have nothing else to do, since you can't work out in the garden, then you might want to come down and join me. So there's one that I've really pruned up pretty tightly, and I'll get ready to do the other one. Okay, here's another thing, one thing too. I talked about this last fall, but you can also do it this year, so in the spring. So thing one is to get some inexpensive golf tees. These are bamboo, but they are brightly colored. And what I'm doing here is I am marking certain specimens that I might lose track of later. And for me, that means my huge Ambassador, Gladiator, all of my alliums. So you can see right here, because I wanted to plant some of them along Lemon Lane, I've got 2 large ones that have just come up. And you can see next to it, there's another little guy, another hyacinth that I planted last year that I had forced. There's another one, and there's some grape hyacinths right there, but I don't want to lose these. So even after they bloom, the foliage begins to die, I am still going to keep these white golf tees in place. Yes, they might get dirty, but I can take a picture of the general idea of where I got them. This way, if I am planting something in the future, I won't split them in half. So there are 2 of them. And let's see. Oh, here's one over here, Stuart. I planted them along both sides of Lemon Lane. Here's another thing too. So you see that there was one coming up right there. I've already marked it, and since I marked that one, this one has come up. I'm using white for this. This one has come up, so now I know where this one is located, and that will be helpful when I plant these hyacinths. I won't plant them and slit through that bulb. So there is a handy tip. Thing 1, thing 2, use golf tees to identify precious elements in your garden. Okay, one thing I want to do in my container gardens this year, and by the way, I cannot wait to get this all staged and beautified for you guys, but that won't be until after tomorrow, when hopefully this last really cold blast comes through, or at least windy, potentially destructive cold blast comes through. But what I want to do today is be opportunistic about my seeding some greens and some other cool season vegetables. And why I'm doing them in so many of these pots is because my planter boxes, my metal liners for these back boxes have not yet arrived. I think there's some kind of hitch in the get-along of getting those constructed. And so because of that, I do want to go ahead, since this season is so short for us here in Oklahoma, I do want to go ahead and get some greens started. Plus, I think growing vegetables and edimentals in pots is every bit as decorative as growing flowers. So I'm going to be doing that. And I've got 3 pots in particular excuse me, 3 pots in particular that I'm going to fill with different kinds of greens. And these are all these copper bucket things that I got last year. And I'm wanting to do them in a color palette that will coordinate, and there'll be color echoes with this planter that I got the other day, or that I planted the other day. Now, someone asked, Linda, you didn't understand when I said because it was a bird, but how could it be a bird bath if there was a hole in the bottom? And it's because this was a pedestal bird bath, and there's a hole in the bottom that then fit over the cone of the pedestal itself, and that's why there's a hole in it. But I want my greens and things that I'm going to be growing to kind of match this rusty burnt orange red look that I like to have here in the backyard. So that is what I'm going to be doing, so I'll meet you over at the potting bench. Okay, well, I've got my seeds, and I kind of have an idea in my head of what I want to do. So I want to use these copper pots. I've got Papa Bear here, and I've got Mama Bear. Baby Bear is over there. I haven't found a pot that will fit perfectly inside the diameter of Baby Bear. Now, I am always on the lookout for pots that will fit into whatever container I'm using, whether it's a basket, well, just anything that I want to be able to elevate whatever's growing in there out, either to bring back inside because it can't overwinter outside, or for just this purpose where I might want to take it out and once the lettuce is finished, replant it with something else. So even when I go to the garden center, I will look for something in bloom that might fit exactly into the pot itself. So I'll bring my pots with me, and that will tell me that ever after I will have a liner that will, even if the contents die, I'll have a liner that fits exactly inside that container. And then I just don't discard it. I just keep it in there into perpetuity. Okay, so since I've got that vibe going over there, that kind of magenta, deep cardinal red, I want to continue that with some of my greens. So in this bucket right here, I have filled it up with a good quality potting mix. And sometimes, let's say I've got a container that's just half filled with old mix. If what was growing in there was not diseased, then I'll leave that in there and I will just top it off with some new container mix, because most of these things that I'm planting now, they are shallow rooted anyway. So in the front, you may recall, that color palette called for some chartreuse color black-seeded Simpson, and this is going to be red lettuce bowl. So I've already put some soil in here, and then if I can get my hands to work, I am just going to very thinly sprinkle this on top. And then my technique is going to be exactly what it was for my tiny lawns in the front. I am going to water it in really well, and then I'm going to cover it with some kind of plastic. And then as soon as I see signs of germination, I'm going to uncover it. And in very short order, I should get germination, and I will be able to position it where I want it to grow in the garden in some kind of staged vignette. Now, the other reason that I think it's good to plant containers like this is because as conditions change, as it gets hotter, as it gets cooler or whatever, then I can just relocate these to a different area in the garden that might have more appropriate light. Or I can relocate them into another vicinity after I replant them with something new once the salad greens are finished. So in this one, I planted some of that red salad bowl lettuce. I think in Baby Bear, I'm going to plant, well, how about I just tell you when I get back? And in Baby Bear, I'm going to plant a Chef's Choice mesclun mix. This is seed that I just got last year, so I feel fairly confident that it is still viable seed and it will germinate. But I'm planting this pretty thickly, so even if I only get 50% germination, that should be just fine. So I will get Baby Bear and I will fill it with some of this mesclun mix. And then what about Papa Bear? Well, Papa Bear is going to be deeper, not so shallow as the other, and I might want to try something a little bit different in here. So here is another question of the day. I've got two things in mind. Do I want to grow carrots in here because they're a root vegetable and they are a tuber and will need more of the depth to grow, or some Swiss chard rainbow seed? So you guys tell me what you think I should plant that will match this kind of ensemble of small pots that I have that will be growing in the backyard with edimentals. One thing I missed from the other house that I have yet to grow here, and that is dill. It's one of my favorite herbs, one of my favorite cut flowers, and I think, let's see, I am supposed to be sowing this in open ground, well exposed when soil is warm. Then when plants are a few inches tall, this is fernleaf dill. It won't get quite so tall as the mammoth dill, so I'll keep that in mind because I'm going to be seeding this in the front in the cottage garden beds. So there you go. I hope you guys enjoyed what we showed you today on Signature Style Saturday. If you did, please make sure to hit the like button, subscribe, follow, and most importantly, share it with others that might enjoy this kind of small garden, urban garden, but very stylish gardening. Take care.